How you guys doing? Welcome back to Conversations Over Chess. The individual that's stopping by the podcast is somebody who is a jack of all trades. I might say that often, but this actual individual lives it. He doesn't just speak about it, he lives about it. I got my little Shannon Sharp notes right here just to do the introduction. So, the individual that's stopping by the podcast is a community activist, a coach. He's an elected official, a son, a youth worker, a flag football player, a basketball player, a singer, a brother, a poet. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain himself, Ali. Welcome to the podcast.
Peace, my brother.
How you doing?
I am positively overwhelmed with your setup, with who you are as a human being. I'm doing really well, alhamdulillah. It's Ramadan.
Yes, sir.
I feel at peace. And I'm grateful to be sitting here with you.
That's good. I was going to touch on that a little bit. I was going to say, with you, with this filming of this, it's Ramadan. How are you feeling in that journey going on right now?
At peace. It's easy. It's an easy fast for me. And I hope that is accepted. And when I say easy, what I mean is Allah has bestowed upon me a lot of grace.
Okay.
I've been doing this since I reached puberty. And I used to fast during Ramadan. I was fast during football season in high school.
Okay.
Fast when I was doing carpentry in the summertime. And so right now in this time period with short hours, it's not too hard, but also I'm not just abstaining from food and drink.
Yes.
Other worldly desires, we call fitna chaos, trying to stay away from doubtful matters and other things.
Yes.
So it's easy for me to maneuver.
So you had a lot of practice in it. That's good. I was going to say, so I'm hearing you're the first Kyrie.
I tweeted at Kyrie once when he became Muslim. It's like, let me mentor you, brother.
There you go. Did you get any response?
No, it's okay, but God willing, one day.
Okay. One thing I wanted to start at is that all of the titles that I mentioned, first off, is there anything that I missed?
You know what? Titles are so interesting because they're worldly.
Yes.
And so I'm no longer an elected official. I was an elected official, the first black male elected in Beacon history.
Talk your stuff.
The first Muslim elected in New York State history.
Talk your stuff.
Which is wild, right? Who wants to be the first at that in the 2000s?
Yeah.
But it was monumental, and more have come since then.
Okay.
I was the youngest elected in Beacon. I work for the Commission of Human Rights and the county level, youth services, and government isn't going anywhere. I really don't like politics.
Okay.
But government has our foot in our necks. And so I always felt if there's politics in your family, if there's politics in business, in Little League football, I might as well join those ranks in government. And I'm still fighting for that. You know, I'm an agitator. But yeah, no, the titles are cool. The roles are great. And I want to be a good human.
Yeah. I can understand that. One thing my brother always tells me, my brother Slinky, best friend of mine,
great man.
He always talks about, take these titles off individuals, what do we have? So he always tells me that frequently, like, take the sister, if this was just somebody else, would you, take your boss, if this was just somebody else, and take those titles off, and then what do we have? Right. And we have respect, we have this, we have that. So if you're treating an individual equally as everybody else, then I can understand why it's just like, Don't worry about my title, man. It's not even important.
It's not important. Shakespeare, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So my name is Ali Tawfiq Muhammad, one who will excel, a gift from God, and Muhammad means praiseworthy. So I know the strength of a name. I also know that I'm a humanist, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
I like it when people forget who I am.
Yeah.
They don't forget what I've done, though. You don't need to remember my name specifically.
Definitely. Speaking of titles, of those ones, if you had to pick, which one would be the most important to you? Even if it's one that I did not name.
I think coach.
One? Coach.
I think coach.
Why coach?
Football player.
I seen the highlights. You was moving. It was on the hips and everything.
It's muscle memory, right?
It's a fact.
Muscle memory. And I got to show these young bulls I still got it.
It's a big fact.
Coach, because it's not just about sports, right? Life coaching, working with young people, coaching, having a critical lens, but also being there for people. Mentor gets thrown around a lot, and so that it's cool, but knowing that I was able to be in someone's life and coach them up.
Yes.
Because they asked for it, but also there's a young man named Trey. He's probably closer to his 30s now. He's Elijah Hughes' friend, and I remember when he first asked me to mentor him and coach him through some things, and it's like he was in his early 20s. So we would sit down at Bank Square a couple times. I can't say that I influenced his life, but I know that I was able to give him some gems.
Definitely.
And he's flourishing. you know? And
Yes.
so it just feels good to be able to know that I'm a second counter. And so for the few moments, for the few minutes, for the couple hours I spent with them,
Yes.
I don't think that I made that much of an impact. Who knows? But I am appreciative that I was a part of his life.
I'll actually will push back on that because
Now it's time to pay these bills.
this episode is brought to you by Heart and Soul Training. They're the premier sports and basketball training in DMV while also offering training sessions in Delaware and New Jersey. Training athletes of all ages from young kids to even pro athletes. Some pro athletes by the name of Jordan Allen, aka JA to you all, who just hit 13 threes down in Mexico. Also, they trained Martez Robinson, the personnel at Delaware State University, down to a MEAC conference finals. Heart and Soul Training, what are you waiting for? Go check them out. Details in the description or on the screen. Peace.
Now back to the podcast.
The few hours that I spent at the Newburgh Zion Lines here in Newburgh, New York, right? The few hours that was spent every weekend or every week, whether it be away at games, whether it be in the gym working out, whether it be anything, taught me some of the greatest lessons I've ever had in my life. Shout out to Coach Brother, shout out to the Newburgh Zion Lines, shout out to Harold Rayford, Coach Mike, every single coach. I could go down the list. They've done so much for me.
Yes.
And just their actions as men in my life.
Yes.
And as the lessons that was taught, whether it was, you need to finish the drill or get out my
sound
gym.
like brother.
That's Coach Brother. Or whether it was your window of opportunity is closing. Coach Mike used to, I never forget that speech he used to always give us from young men to older men now. It's like, hey, your window of opportunity is shutting. And although I'm not playing sports no more, a lot of the lessons that they taught us in sports has transferred over to my life as a man and growing into being a better man. So something as simple as finishing the drill in AAU, I got to finish class now. It took me. I graduated high school 2014. I didn't graduate until 2021. I still finished the drill, coach.
Exactly.
And it meant a lot.
Exactly.
So some of the life lessons that they're teaching there, I would push back to say, hey, it was just a couple hours. No, you probably meant a lot to him, and you wouldn't even know.
And you don't know. And so some of the men that you mentioned are mentoring me now too.
That's what's going to be a question.
Process. Coach Harold Rayford, Coach Mike, brother calling me a brother and checking in and wishing me a happy holiday means a lot to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I often say it resonates, right? And so it resonated with you, but clearly it reverberated through your soul.
Yes.
It ricocheted through your spirit.
Yes.
For you to sound like them and for you to be able to complete this as an adult, these things, it means a lot. And so that being a coach is the most important thing that I've ever done. Outside
of them coaching you, any other mentors, because we were speaking about how you mentor the youth, you coach young women, you coach men, you coach basketball, football, you do a lot of things. So who has been those individuals for you growing up when you were a youngster? Who are those coaches?
So my parents are my greatest educators, coaches, inspirations, and I talk about them a lot. Mm-hmm. I had some wacky coaches, you know, and some people that I also didn't want to. There's some people in my life that I looked at them and I was like, I don't want to be like them specifically. So sometimes learning from other people's mistakes is the best.
Definitely.
I'll get pushed back for this because he is a Republican. We don't agree on lots of political things. But Marcus Molinaro, a Republican, he showed me the ropes.
Okay.
He showed me more about government than any Democrat ever did. Yeah. We don't align on our views. But as a human being, we were friends, and he mentored me in certain things, and I appreciate him for that. Yeah. Steve Gold is another person that really influenced me, a Democrat.
And which party are you?
I'm a Democrat. I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm an independent thinker.
Okay.
I don't like the two-party system.
All right.
I don't like that we have to play games like that because at the end of the day, there's 7,000 people living below the poverty line in Newburgh, and they don't care about the road issue or the income issue is not a Republican or Democratic issue.
Yes. And one thing that I don't want to go over the audience's head is that you just said, hey, I'm a registered Democrat and a Republican taught me something. I break bread, not necessarily that's breaking bread, best friends, buddy, but I can have a conversation with the opposition. I can learn from the opposition and still go about my day and do the things to fight for the side that I believe in. The reason I want to bring that to your attention is that I have a friend who is registered Trump voter, loves him some Trump. Shout out to Austin Pagano. Hopefully I'm not outing you, my guy. But white individual, but that's my brother.
Yeah.
And like my aunt always frequently tells me, it's like, yo, who really gives a damn?
Right.
That's your friend. has been my friend. His family has done so much for me in my life, and because who he votes for, I'm not going to befriend him. No, no. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So he's an individual that's a brother to me in this world, regardless of, guess what, you voted for an individual that doesn't fight for anything that I believe in.
Right.
But that's not going to make me think different or highly or not. Like, no, you and I are still you and I.
Right.
Once he goes and do whatever, look.
So one of my mantras growing up was learn our similarities. There's a lot of similarities, but understand, comprehend our differences. That's how we get closer as human beings. There's a lot of folks that claim to care about black folks or care about where we're coming from, but won't ever invite you over the kitchen table.
Yes.
I remember growing up, there were some basketball coaches that would want all the black kids on their team, but wouldn't let them take a shower in the house.
Yeah.
Wouldn't invite them over to the house. Marcus brought me around his family, brought me around his, my family had moved. He brought me around his family. I was around his kids. I was eating Thanksgiving dinner. And I remember this Democratic couple said, "We don't want to see you posting pictures on Thanksgiving dinner with Marcus."
Oh, wow.
And it's like, but you guys are gatekeepers. I started this without him through an organic relationship, right? But also I understand where they're coming from. They don't want me scoring points for the other team.
Yeah.
I also understand that as a human being, I'm going to learn from other people, and I'm going to try to do my best to also influence them. The exposure of us and our melanin and who we are matters. And people being around us also simultaneously gets them exposed to us.
Definitely.
And so that's important.
And that's one thing that I actually lived out, is that because I've lived in 10 states, I lived in Utah, I lived in Minnesota, I lived in Alabama, I lived in Memphis, I lived in several states, been to 48 out of 50, I can understand and be sympathetic and empathetic as to why you think this way, because people from wherever we're from never been to those places, and they might not understand, like, why are they even caring out there in West Bubba, Kansas? Well, because they live a certain lifestyle and then the farmlands, and this is how it affects this, that, and the third. So I saw up front how it's like, oh, okay, these little laws might mean much to us, but it affects somebody else.
Exactly.
And again, I'm not one to be the person that says if it's right or wrong. I just understand because I've been there. I put my feet on the soil.
Yes. Traveling to the southern tier in New York, traveling to places I've never been to in New York State.
Yes.
That were predominantly poor white folks, and they had this in rural areas, but they had similar issues as people in Newburgh, people in Poughkeepsie, people in Beacon that are living below the poverty line.
Yes.
Right? And so just seeing, I'm anti-fracking, but understanding that 2 miles across the river, they're in Pennsylvania, they're able to frack over there, doesn't make me not believe that we shouldn't be anti-fracking, but I can understand that their livelihood's being affected.
Exactly.
So what are we gonna do to help them put food on their table?
Yes.
Right.
One question I had for you is, where did the love of community come from? The reason why that's such a big question for me is because I'm from Newburgh, New York, and growing up here, I didn't remember an Ali doing much. I'm like, yo, where did this guy come from? He does a lot. God dang, I left. I've been going 10 years. But the other side of that is that I've seen a Nipsey Hussle get gunned down into this community. I've seen other individuals die in their communities, and I've seen a lot of just people. It's just their own community. So where does the love of community come from? Why are you so like, I don't care what it takes, I'm all for Newburgh? Like, where does that come from for yourself?
Respectfully, my two educators, Fonda Muhammad, my two parents, Imam Dr. Salahuddin Muhammad, they brought me up that way.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed and privileged to have two parents to teach me that. Before I knew what an organizer was, Obama, I was organizing, right? Mm-hmm. Before I knew what Nipsey was doing, I was neighborhood mech. He's neighborhood Nip, I was neighborhood Mecca.
Okay.
And seeing other people rise to those things was beautiful, but we need the support, we need the help. And so in the early 90s, the mosque boycotted the gas station because they were being racist. So when I was 6 years old, that was my first protest. Okay. And seeing us black Muslims showing up with Arab Muslims and South Asian Muslims, and they changed businesses because we stopped supporting them.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's basic needs not being met in a community, I want to do my best. So I never had a lot of money, but I had a lot of wealth of heart.
Yes.
And so community clothing drives, community cleanups are needed. I started in 2016 doing cleanups in Newburgh. And Spooner and White Flick, they supported me. They showed up, and I was just out there dolo.
Yeah.
But they joined in, you know what I mean? And then we just kept going, and it was like, I don't want to be a part of gentrification, but at the end of the day, I know that I can agitate the spirit.
Definitely.
I can irritate the spirit by cleaning up. And if an outsider can clean up, others can clean up, right? Let the broken windows theory, and I'm sorry if I'm going off on a tangent.
No, you're good.
We suffer from the broken windows theory, which means if there's broken windows, the community can continue to be degraded. If there's broken windows and graffiti and trash, people are going to continue to treat the neighborhood like it's trash.
Yeah.
But if it's clean, then it will deter. If there's lights, it deters crime. So let's pick up, let's clean up. We started on Lander Street because that was the murder capita. That was the street of the murder capita.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember growing up, they used to have a gang called Gotham. I would never walk through Lander. I was so scared. It was 1,000 mother lovers out there. And I'm like, yo, bro, if I ain't got no business doing nothing down there. If you was a shorty and I was trying to run down, where you live at, Lander? Oh, we can't talk,
good.
baby girl.
I'm good.
I'm not walking through Gotham. I'm not going down there.
I should have known. You know what I'm saying? But it just, I fear Allah, thankfully, and I don't have those narratives specifically, but I appreciated the fact that it was needed. And so, I don't know, I just showed up. Clothing drives, again, how can you go on I was a part of a nonprofit, Dutchess Community Action Partnership, and they did something called Dress for Success.
Okay.
And I used it. They told me to cease and desist at one point because they copyrighted it, wrote it, or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But the point was, how do you expect someone to go get a job if they don't have clean clothes? They don't have a fresh haircut. And sometimes people are too prideful to go ask.
Yeah.
So, and people want to recycle and do these things and put them clothes in the orange boxes. No, give us the clothes and we're going to go outside and we're going to go on the block and we're going to give away the clothing.
Yeah.
Little things. And to me, that's dawah. As a Muslim, giving dawah on the street, that's what the nation used to do.
Yeah.
That's what my father used to do in Newburgh. I don't need to be in the mosque. I didn't want to be an educator like my mother and be a teacher in the school. I didn't want to be an imam. I always wanted to help us.
Okay.
The people in the streets. Not that they weren't helping us, but that was like, all right, that was my hole.
Yeah.
That was my pivot. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I've been doing. And gratefully, I never gave up.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you can see it
Thankfully.
just across, again, from the time I met you, you're a jack of all trades and you do a lot of things for the community. And one thing that I had heard, and there's another question I had, is that Denzel, I think he probably got it from somebody else who got it from somebody else, but he has said that man gives the award and Allah for yourself gives the reward. So I say that to say that Coach Brother, going back to the Newburgh Zion Lions, all the coaches, not just Coach Brother, they all said the same thing, is that the reward for us is you being a great, wonderful, successful man. You don't got to make it to the NBA. You don't got to do this, but what you will do and what's expected of you is to be the best you that you could be in this world and to be better than us.
Exactly.
And they never wanted anything back for that.
Right.
They just wanted to go be great and do wonderful things. So the question is, what is the reward for you? Because you go out and you do so much for the community. So man gives the awards here and there. What is the reward for you?
So these questions are phenomenal.
Now it's time to pay these bills.
Think global, act local. Wrld Izyorz offers the coolest men's fashion and accessories, available at 104 William Street in Newburgh, New York, my hometown. It's also available at wrldizyorz.com. That is WRLDIZYORZ.com. Get you some.
Now back to the podcast.
As a believer, Muslim means believer. Allah means God in Arabic. And as a believer and being raised in the faith of Islam, I believe in the hereafter. I believe in the afterlife. You only live once.
Yes.
So why live trash? So my service on this earth, like Muhammad Ali said, is to give to others.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm not worried about paradise on earth.
Yeah.
I'm focused on the Jannah. I'm focused on the afterlife. And I guess that's where it comes from. I just want to help others here. I'm not so focused on the reward that I could receive here. I just want to be able to help other people. And that's really comes from, so the term, I'm gonna push back a little bit here.
Yeah.
The term jack of all trades is sometimes an underhanded compliment, which I know that's not where you're coming from.
For
Jack
sure.
of all trades, master of none. But as a wordsmith,
Yeah.
as someone who developed mantras, and I've heard people say that with the sleight of tongue, I'm a jack of all trades, but master of self.
There you go.
And when we talk to kids and when we're training kids, master your body weight. As a physical education teacher at Nora Cronin Presentation Academy, as a trainer, as a coach, I let folks know that you got to understand who you are.
Yes.
I'm not a judgmental person because I'm trying to spend my life getting to know who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Master who I am, and so that's important. So we could do these other things.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't help other people until you help yourself.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. And everything I've seen, I help myself when I help other people. That might work for someone else, but for me, nah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here or who I am if I wasn't able to give back to others.
Definitely. One thing too that I've just, and this isn't anywhere on my notes, but one thing that I've just one thing that I just noticed is that the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, 5 Percenters, the Quran, it really has the empowerment of knowing. It's really up here more than anything else, and that's something that I admire. I was raised in a Christian with this, that, and the third, but I'm also the man of understanding that because I've been to so many different places of the world, I love learning about other faiths. Because I might be canceled, but I tell people it's the same story with different characters, is what I sometimes say. And you might call him Allah, I call him God, you call him Jesus, you call him Muhammad. Either way, there's certain foundational principles that we all have to abide by, whether my book says the Bible or the book says the Quran. And it's all for us to be the power of here and all in one. And that's something that I really noticed about the 5 Percenters, like different sects of that.
Yes.
I've noticed that. I was like, yo, and that's something that I really admire because it's just, I tell people frequently, it wasn't until this year, 2024, I just turned 2028, I just turned 28 a few weeks ago, that I had confidence in myself.
Right.
Imagine if I had that when I was 12.
Right.
Imagine if I had that when I was 21.
And thankfully you have it now because you could live another 70 years.
Exactly.
And the people that you're going to reach one by one, that exponential growth, right? Each one reach one till a million.
Exactly.
And you're doing that. The mathematics of the 5 Percenters and things like that, you know, my dad grew up on that time, and, you know, there's people that have the knowledge but don't want to give it. The people that have the knowledge and keep it for themselves. And there's people like us who have the knowledge and want to give to others.
That's what this is about. I want everybody to go learn, like, hey, look, I was raised this, but he just said something that sparked my interest, and I want to go learn about something else. I might not convert, but I want to be educated.
Right.
Why do they fast? Why do they do this?
And so growing up as Muslim, you know, and being my mom we had a book club growing up, and just being raised that way, my religion brought me on to like mythology. And the stories and the lessons,
Zeus and
the cautionary tales. And so I love Greek mythology. So Zeus and all these things, these myths, but also understanding that this world is 65 million years old. The universes, Allah made the universes, universes, right? And so we're small pawns in what this greater universe is. And so my faith led to mythology, led to wanting to understand other stories, and then Aesop fables. But all of it helped me along my life. And it's like we talked a little bit earlier ahead of time, the road less traveled, the crossroads is deep in most cultures. So knowing that there's different archetypes, but if there's different archetypes, there's also a lot of similarities, right?
Definitely.
And so the overlap, the energy, the spirit. The spirit and the energy is what I believe we're consistent of. So some people aren't religious at all, but they're spiritual.
Definitely.
Our connectivity to God is that spirit within us, that soul.
Definitely.
There's soulless people out here right now.
Those are ones I'm trying to stay away from. I used to date a Muslim woman, which is why I've learned a little bit. Like I said, I always try to meet people where they're at, or at least halfway. So if it's like, if my baby girl is fasting, then maybe I should learn why, this, that, and the third. And again, she never wanted me to convert. It was just more of a, I love you for who you are, and I loved her for who she was.
And it's a revert, because you start as a believer. You're born Muslim.
Exactly.
Maybe not into Islam, but you're born a believer.
Exactly. The motto of Conversations Over Chess is every loss is a lesson. There's 2 losses that you've taken that I know personally that I want you to speak of, and then anything outside of that, of a lesson that you had learned. But one of them was the loss of your brother, and then the other one is that you had lost the race to Mayor, is it current?
Torrance is still in the...
To Mayor Harvey. I want to know the loss of a brother, how has that affected you? Because I have an older brother, and I have other brothers that are friends in this world, and I know how that would kill me. And then the loss of that other one, of just the mayoral race of...
Again, Jabari, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be real, and this is a beautiful setup. And for a long time, I was active since my 20s. I've done a lot of interviews, and this is one of the most organic and authentic.
I appreciate
I'm proud
that.
of you.
I appreciate it.
I've taken more losses than that, and every loss is a lesson.
For sure.
And losing my brother, Salim was my best friend growing up. And like, as a kid and everything, he was 3 years older than me. I learned so much from him, and he was the coolest dude in the world, smooth, artistic. Every girl liked him. He was fly, you know what I'm saying? I was his big little brother all the time. The story I always think of is when we, there was like they used to have bus shelters. And he was like, I want to climb the bus shelter. We were waiting for the bus in elementary school one day. And so I was like, cool, whatever. I'm going to climb on your back to get up there.
Yeah.
Okay. And I let him. And then he fell and he scraped his face and stuff. And they ended up removing the bus shelter. But I would follow him into so much. And at one point in my life, I had to stop following him. He was making some bad decisions in his life.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part, is when the people that you look up to is just like, dang, I have to sometimes lose you or let's leave you right here because of where I'm going. You can't come. And I might get a little bit emotional, but that's something I had to learn about Newburgh, is that everywhere,
bro.
Some places that I'm going, and I want my whole city to win. There's a lot of pollen in here, which is why I'm crying.
Yeah, exactly. The onions.
But I be wanting my entire city to win, G. Exactly. My entire city, but I can't. Right. Where I'm going, they just can't go. Right.
And what you're doing, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah. This is pollen, man. It's this pollen, man. It's this pollen, man.
No, it's a lot of pollen, man. There's a prophet isn't respected in his homeland.
Yeah.
Leaving Beacon was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. That was one of the greatest losses, even losing Torrance Harvey.
Yeah.
And so everybody can't go with you, but they can see you, and you could bring in some way they could bring them with you.
Yeah.
And it's just a reality, unfortunately, that you can't bring everybody with you, and you got to keep going, and it's hard. I didn't lose my train of thought at all, but it's real. And so there's so much devastation and loss. And I had that one specific one with my brother, and then coming here and seeing all the candles and the graffiti for the people that have been lost through gun violence, through poverty, through the fact that our elected officials aren't doing enough. Seeing the activity center be the same activity center since I was a kid. Coming to Newburgh and people, well, who are you? Where are you? I've been in this city
I've been here longer than you.
Respectfully.
What are we talking about? Let's talk about it right now.
And I got this governmental acumen.
Yeah.
And they're not doing enough for you.
Yeah.
We need to change this comprehensive plan and change this charter so there's more support. But you don't want to understand. And no disrespect. I shouldn't even have name dropped him. Yeah. But one day I was asking him about changing the charter and how he needs to speak to the people about it. And he's like, but the people won't understand. But it's your job as a council member to make them understand, to work with them. And so moving to Newburgh, I had to focus on meeting folks where they are. Yes. All this energy, all this knowledge I have, don't matter if they don't know you. And if you're not understanding where they're coming from. So I had to also check myself.
Yeah, you go. I tell people all the time, I take responsibility for everything that happens. If I'm late going to work, it's not due to traffic. It doesn't matter if there was an accident. I should have left earlier. And that's the biggest thing that shifted my whole way of thinking, is when I started taking responsibility for everything, good or bad, that happened to me. That's when it started allowing me to level up.
You hold yourself accountable.
Exactly. Because it's one thing when my brothers, my mom, or this, that. No, when I hold yourself accountable, if you hold yourself to a higher standard, no matter what nobody else says about you, you'll be good.
And Allah's plan and learning about your mother, may she rest in power and peace, forced you, even if you didn't understand it.
Oh, no, I tell people all the time, that's the greatest blessing, and I don't think I've ever articulated it, but the worst thing that ever happened to me was the greatest blessing, because nobody understands the timeline. When I was 13, I started smoking at 11, was getting arrested, this, that, and the third, robbing, stealing, being a wild kid at 12, sent down south when I was 13, and when I got back, she passed away. That trajectory just sent me on a whole different say of like, yo, I don't got my mom anymore, I got to start doing a little bit better now. Right. Now, outside of that, I had a village that supported me. Like when I look back, my story has been fortunate and blessed. I had an uncle that was no nonsense. I'm on your ass because I want you to be better than me.
Yeah.
Coming from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Up here to Newburgh. I want you to be better.
6 borough.
Exactly. So it's just like the people don't understand that story. Where it's like I was terrible. I was out here robbing and stealing and jugging, as the kids would say. I was doing all that. I was with the shits back in the day. But now I had to learn that my uncle taught me that, you can go work for that stuff. The stuff that you stealing, you can go earn it. Go get a McDonald's job. Shout out to Coach Harold Rayford. That was for 5 summers straight. He was my summer job. People don't understand.
Eddie McNair, my best friend. They think I'm joking, but I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't become friends with Eddie McNair in 2nd grade. He lost his father at a very young age. Eddie's been the man before then, but ever since. Lost his mother a couple years ago, around the same time as Salim.
Yeah.
It was really hard. We lost Imam Rashada and Shakir, 2 Newburgh residents. But Eddie, as a friend, has also been one of the greatest mentors in my life. And similar.
Yeah.
That you have to step up, you have to stand up, and not everybody's capable.
Exactly.
Understands it, and again, the decree might not be there for them until later.
Yeah.
So you're doing it. You're doing it, bro.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I tell people, like, this is, I be joking about it, but it's fakely true. I'm like, this is more than just my therapy session mixed with, I ain't got nothing better to do, mixed with, I want to give back to the world, like.
To go back to the other question, why I do these things, because I don't want to just be chilling. Chill don't pay the bills. This is therapy. Writing poetry, starting out as a poet.
Yeah.
I don't like to perform a lot because it was therapy to me.
Yeah, that's what people understand. Like, this really is for me. I'm giving it to the world, and I want it to be the best podcast ever. But guess what? This is my therapy.
That's how you're gonna be the best. That raw emotion that you're able to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is look, this man. One thing I have in my notes here is that Israel and Palestine.
Now it's time to pay these bills.
This episode is brought to you by DJ DMC. For any parties, kickbacks, and weddings, DJ DMC has your back. You can find him on Instagram at DMCTheGoat, on Instagram at DMCTheGoat. Please be prepared to pay the cost as seen on my shirt. He also makes his clothing line, great premier brand, and be sure to reach out to his Instagram as well at Pay the Cost LLC on Instagram. That is Pay the Cost LLC on Instagram. Get you some.
Now back to the podcast.
And obviously, I mentioned across the conversation that you are a Muslim individual. Yes. Where do you stand in it? Tell us about your point of view on what's going on in the world.
Trying to get canceled.
And just educate an individual, because one thing I've realized is that I used to say, I don't have a dog in certain races because it doesn't affect me. But guess what? Any worldly problem is somewhat inadvertently my problem as well.
And injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Exactly. So who said that? Martin Luther King? That was
Martin Luther.
Look at me. Dr. King. So, shout out to Dr. King. But go ahead.
Ironically or coincidentally, I always mess those two up.
Yeah.
Where I got this hat, the Black Lives Matter hat, was in D.C. at the Black People's March.
Okay.
Or Poor People's Campaign a couple years ago during 2020.
All right.
When everything shut down and people were posting their black boxes and it was paying a little bit more attention.
That's a fact.
And I went with a group of folks from this area that I was organizing with, protesting, demonstrating, and I got to see Dr. Martin Luther King's granddaughter speak. A child. He's not that far removed. His great-great-great-grand, his granddaughter was up there giving a speech and how powerful she was.
Yeah.
And I got to see that with my own eyes.
It moves you a little bit differently. I tell people all this. I don't know if I've ever told the full story. So I was dating a young lady. We went to Atlanta, Georgia for her family reunion. And inside the restaurant where they were serving individuals, there was a YouTube sensation power couple or whatever. Okay. And then there was Congressman John Lewis.
Okay, my brother.
And I knew who he was. I was like, yo, like, this is an individual that actually physically marched for me. Like, I didn't get a chance to meet Dr. King, Malcolm X, the people that I like hold to high regard. But this is an individual that I got to go shake his hand, got a photo with him. It sits on my desk everywhere I go for work. Like, he means so much to me. And I never forget that, like, people were just flocking over to the YouTube couple. Yeah. I'm like, yo, you mother lovers. I had a different choice of words. I'm like, you motherfuckers, you going over to this YouTube channel, and this is a person that marched for your black asses.
Our culture sometimes offends me. I'm going to go back to Palestine in a second.
Yes.
But again, Bill Murnane, someone who lived near us. He is a Republican. My family grew up with his family in Beacon before politics. He respected me so much. As a limo driver, he was driving John Lewis at one time, and he called him on the phone. And I don't share everything. I share a small percentage of my life on social media. And I spoke with John Lewis. It was years ago. Maybe it was 2017, 2016, something like that. Yeah. But I got to speak with him. So I have his books and things like that, but I got to speak with John Lewis.
He ended up coming in and speaking. He gave a quick little speech to the entire family reunion. It was like we were in a separate room. He came back there and spoke to us. And it was like, it still is probably the greatest day of my life, because I was like, yo, this individual that actually, like, it's one thing when people do things, but this individual, like, sacrificed.
He bled for us.
Literally, got beaten, dogs, hosed down, all of this stuff, like, for me. Like, when you think about that, it's like, how many people that you know today is doing that for you? Your friend, your this to that, that's about to go get beat in the head with a brick.
Facts though.
That's what I'm saying. It's very few that I can count.
And they did it systematically when they assassinated our leaders in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They made generations apathetic, because if this is what they're going to do to celebrities and leaders, what will they do to us?
Exactly. And you know what's so ironic about everything is that I think about my entire journey, and I work right next to the FBI building. People don't know. Right next to the federal building, what is it? Federal Bureau of Investigation, and on the side of it is J. Edgar Hoover, the person that is single-handedly responsible for every single thing that I think of in my mind, and the conspiracy theorist.
He was allowed
in my mind.
It's not a conspiracy theory.
He single-handedly said, Malcolm, end them. King, end them. Like, and again.
And they got their own people too.
Yes.
Just like the Newburgh, and I want to go back to Palestine, but just like the Newburgh sting that happened here, the Newburgh Four, the four brothers from Newburgh that were entrapped by the FBI, so that way they can get federal funding, appropriation, for more money against terrorism. So they entrapped these four brothers from Newburgh that for one in $50,000. It was wrong. And so black lives, I'm brown, we're brown, but we're black people. And I could go into that designation for our reparations. That's why I say black, because I have a claim to this nation.
Okay, Dr. Umar. Okay, Dr. Umar. He said, don't get me started on how many lashings you deserve.
Okay?
500 lashings.
But Palestinians are black.
Yeah.
They're treated like black people. The playbook that they use, that the Western imperialism, the American imperialism, Western imperialism, the British occupation, the same thing that they did to us, they just doing it over there with different names to these people. So since 1948, they pushed these Palestinian people out of their land in the name of Judaism, in the name of Israel. And since 1948, they've been living in this occupation, and it's disgusting, it's disturbing. They're living under an apartheid state. And so gaining more understanding over the past couple years is not just because I'm Muslim. It's not just because I grew up with Palestinians. It's because it's a humane issue. It's a human crisis issue. And what's happening right now is one of the most disturbing things. Over 14,000 children have been killed. Every resolution that we pass, every march that we've gone, there's still people dying. And I can't not do anything. And so we have dogs in this fight, because also Palestinians have shown up for us as well, but period, not but, because everything before but is bullshit, period. So we have to show up for these folks. And what I've seen is that more folks, is like a rainbow coalition. There's so many types of folks showing up for this. On the other side, there's only one type of person. And add some evangelicals or whatever to it. There's only one type of person that don't want to have their indoctrination of Israel taken from them. They are bombing people and pushing them down, and they're saying, but we're giving them leaflets. We're dropping leaflets so that they can go to the next spot. I think that's PTSD. I think that's traumatic. I think I would have PTSD from something like that. If they're dropping leaflets of where to go, but they're just bombing that spot next to the chokehold, to the point of a chokehold. So now these Palestinians are in Rafah. There's been millions of Palestinians displaced. They're bombing hospitals. They're killing teachers. They're killing men. They're killing journalists. They're killing women and children. And they just want to keep talking about October 7th and Hamas.
Yeah.
And so to me, they're just conflating these, not even conflating, they're pivoting to these things, and they're not focused on the humanity. What about the humanity? It's not okay. If universal basic income is something that I believe in, I think it's something that could be achieved. I don't believe it's going to create more inflation, and we don't have to print more money. We need to divest. We need to reallocate these funds.
Yeah.
If the city of Beacon divested from giving funding to Israel for their bombing, for their crimes against humanity, they give $200,000 a year. If they reinvested that, reallocated those funds into UBI, that's $1,000 a month for every resident of the city of Beacon. Do you know what you could do for $1,000 a month?
I do a whole lot with 1,000. I'm out here in Miami. Look at what Uji Daddy. I'm just playing.
I know. I can pay my rent.
I can do a lot with $1,000.
You know what I'm saying? So I'll be living rent free, and we're not killing people. And then what can I do with the extra money? I live, you know, I don't have a lot of means. People thought that me coming to Newburgh, I was this wealthy, rich. I'm Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because I got 2 parents and I got a nice smile. I had to stop wearing suits so I could fit in. I was not told that, but I felt I needed to meet folks where they are. They're not gonna open the door for you if you're in a suit. They don't trust that, and I understood that. You know what I'm saying? And it was an easy adaptation, but the point is we got to uplift here. $250 extra a month in the city of Newburgh would help every resident.
For sure. $250? Boy.
Just $250.
That's look, they getting that in food stands. That's groceries somewhere.
Which is even crazier because if you live in the welfare system, which I understand if you have to, but that generational curse, that generational poverty, you go to college, get a better education, you get a better job, now you're off it. Doesn't mean you don't still need it. So people have to choose sometimes of going to school and not going to school, working a better job or not, because they still need that support.
Definitely.
And that's not okay, because then their kids see it. And then you say the same generational curses, maybe that's the wrong word. It's not a curse to live in subsidized housing. You're also not able to show somebody else something. I had a mom that I was coaching her kids in Pop Warner football in Beacon. I talk about it all the time. One day I was knocking on doors. I asked her to sign my petition, and she said, "Coach, come in. I can't sign. I'm illiterate." She's a 38-year-old woman at the time, raising 2 sons. I learned English through watching novellas. She's living in the city of Beacon in Davies. She needs support. And we're not thinking about this woman and her kids. How are their kids gonna grow up and she's doing her best. But she was like, I can't go to college because if I make more money, I'll lose my housing. The trade-off, what are you gonna do? You gotta provide shelter.
Sure. And that's probably the biggest thing is that there's always the trade-off between the two. One ignorant question that I have is, and I hear it quite often. I'm not going to out the person that says it because she's near and dear to my heart. But what can Trump do? Excuse me, what can Biden do? So from an individual who doesn't know much about the two sides, right, about what's going on, about what happened, what's going to happen, I hear and see, because I live in D.C., a gazillion people flock to the city to say, hey, Biden, we want these things. What specifically can the president of these United States do for a country that he doesn't rule or have a say over? That's an ignorant question, but I want to know because it's something that I just don't know, and it's a question I often have. Is like, yo, what can the president do?
It's not
that mother lover can't do nothing.
So the executive branch, right, legislative branch, judicial branch of government is on every level, whether it's municipal, whether it's on the county level, state, or federal. I'm not voting for Biden. I didn't want to vote for Biden a couple years ago, and I remember people were like, "Oh, we're so disappointed in you," and
it's the lesser of two evils,
right? And so the Democrats, in my opinion, are more focused on social issues and humane issues than others, than the Republicans. But they're two wings of the same corrupt bird when it comes down to it, because there's nobody that's actually close to the problem, who lacks the resources involved that's up there. Not that many people that get elected. Biden, I don't think, can do much different than Trump. And so I'm gonna either vote for someone else, because they try to say if you vote for somebody else, you're voting for Trump. No, if you vote for somebody else, you're voting for that person. But I'm more focused on the state level. of government. I'll be voting for Congress and Senate. I'll be voting for their opponents. I'm not happy with any of them. New York State is a Democratic state. Our state assembly and state senate are run by Democrats, and these people aren't using the will of the people, right? In the Palestinian issue, more Democrats are asking for them to do more. They want a ceasefire, they want to divest, they want to end the blockade of aid. They're blocking aid going into these people, the occupation state, the apartheid, and these nonprofits that are political PACs, super PACs, are able to give money like AIPAC to these candidates, and they work for these corporations technically because of Citizens United, which is something you can go down, you can research. Citizens United. It happened under Obama, unfortunately, which gave these PACs more power. I forget the comedian that said it, but politicians should be wearing like race car jackets with all the patches who owns them. So your friend's not wrong. I just also understand that Trump is worse. Slightly worse. The options they gave us was Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, and Biden a couple years ago. 70-year-old white men. I went on Facebook a couple years ago and said, I'm not voting for another cis white male that's over 35 or 40 years old for a reason. You know what I'm trying to say? They're not doing anything for us. And so unfortunately, fortunately, it's not an ignorant question, but I would even pivot more to, do you know who your county legislators are? Do you know who your mayor is? Do you know who your city council members are, your school board members, your state legislature? I'm running for, by the time this comes out, I'm running for New York State Assembly right now. That connects the city of Beacon, city of Poughkeepsie, city of Newburgh, town of Newburgh, Marlboro, and Lloyd. I'm running against a man named Jonathan Jacobson. I shouldn't have gave him that credit. The point is, he's a 70-year-old white man that hasn't done much for us, who's failed more than me, but he's a political machine. He's challenged my petition since 2016, right, to keep me off the ballot before he even knew who I was. There's so many predatory things that keep folks like us not involved in the actual government that keeps us apart. And so, no, Biden isn't doing much for us, in my opinion, and it's all they're giving us.
Now it's time to pay these bills.
This episode is brought to you by Toes clothing brand, the hottest streetwear from the DC area, based on the principle of community, perseverance, and integrity. From the community, for the community. Stand for something, or you fall for anything. Shop online at 1tentoes.com. That is the number 1 TENTOES.com. And follow on Instagram at 110Toes LLC. That is the number 1 TENTOES LLC. We are 10 Toes. Get you some.
Now back to the podcast.
But if more of us, if there was more 18 to 35-year-olds, I turned 36 May 5th. If there was more 18 to 35-year-olds involved in government, the politics is the misdirection. Right? While we're watching the misdirection right here, everything's moving behind us, the Oklahoma shuffle. Watch this hand while we maneuver behind. And that's what distracts us. We'd have so much more if more 18 to 35-year-olds got participated in government. Forget the politics, like he said earlier. Politics isn't everything. There's politics in the Zion Lions. There's politics in families, you know what I'm saying? I didn't play for the Zion Lions. I'm still from Newburgh. I gotta respect that, right? But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna participate. And so if we had more folks involved, applying pressure. I did a TEDx a few years ago. Check out the TEDx. And I talked about applying pressure. I talked about applying pressure is one of the things. It was curiosity empowered the cat. Imagine that. If I ruled the world, imagine that. Imagine us involved. Imagine if we participated more. We'll achieve a lot more for the next folks. And so, to answer a lot of your questions, we got to do it for the next several generations. Those folks aren't going to do it for us. During the Reconstruction period in the late 1800s, we had 2,000 black representatives throughout local government to the federal level. And white folks were so agitated by that, within 12 years it was gone. So let me ask you a question.
What's up?
Are you registered to vote?
I don't believe so, and the only reason why is because in the last 5 years, I lived in 5 different states.
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. Exactly.
I'm not around long enough to vote anywhere.
and so, I got another question after that. What I tell folks too, some of the most informed folks that I speak with and meet with don't participate. So counter to my argument, I'm still going to listen to you. These politicians, I remember getting educated from Terry Gibson, who ran for state senator, saying, well, bring a watch because you should only spend 2 to 3 minutes at the door every time.
Yeah.
Don't process the process. I'm trying to build with these people.
Yeah.
It's not about elections. I'm here for the human connection. So I'm knocking on doors on City Terrace North yesterday. And so there's nice houses on this road. And the woman says her husband's not home. He's a Democrat. He's a part of unions. And they decided to pick a party because there's no open primaries in New York State. So she's a Republican because her father was a banker. That's her philosophy. That's her rationale. We spoke for a good 10 minutes about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Because she's a resident of the city of Newburgh and a human being. And we have more that unites us than that divides us. So we had a hell of a conversation. We took a nice picture together and she's like, oh, you don't ever need to do something with your teeth, da, 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 da. Like this nice white lady or whatever. But the point is, I'm not gonna not talk to you because you don't vote. Some people aren't eligible to vote.
Yeah.
The predatory fact that within the 13th Amendment, you could still be a slave if you commit a crime. And then when you're on parole, I remember having this debate with Marcus, thinking that the Republicans think that makes sense, that you should still be paying your debt to society. It's like, you've never been incarcerated before.
Yeah, no.
You can't drive, you can't provide for your family, you can't participate in voting. But that's the same stuff that they did in the early to late 1800s. Yeah. Right? For men, women, for people of color, right? 3/5 of men.
It's crazy.
So they just take these things, they take this playbook and say, okay, this didn't work, or people had protested against this. How do we do this without calling it this? How do we enslave people in Palestine?
Just slide a hand.
Throwing rocks and hiding your hand.
Exactly.
So my second question, I guess, is can you see, or do you see yourself not just participating in the electoral politics, right? But educating folks. I believe in voter education, not just registration.
Yeah, no. So if I'm honest with you, Slinky is out of my friend group, because out of my friend group is Luke, Donovan, Board, and Slinky, right? All of them I know from my whole life, basically. Slinky is the politician. Yes. And I was going to say, actually, during this conversation that I feel like I should have brushed up a little bit more on the political side, because I tell people all the time I'm real ignorant when it comes to the Democrat, Republican. I really don't know the difference, and it's really because I don't care. And I somewhat smidgely still believe that my vote doesn't matter. And it's sadly to admittedly say that the only reason why I vote is due to my cousin Brittany. Shout out to Brittany Heidelberg. I was gonna say Brittany Smith, but that was her maiden name. She showed me the importance of it. And I shouldn't even admit this, but I call her each year and say, hey, Britt, who am I voting for? Not each year, but anytime there's an election round. Because I don't have my ear to that street. Right. For me, I just like, look, I know I got to pay my taxes. I know that I'm always going to fight for my own people. Right. And I'm always going to make sure doing the right thing is always the right thing. Mm-hmm. So in regards to the political side, it's like, how can I educate if I'm not really educated myself? Right. And it's not to say that I can't go get educated, because I'd be like, yo, Slink, put me on. I just seen something in the news about this, that, and the third. And he's like, all right. So, and I will say also Luke, he's big on that as well. So he's like, look, this party wants this because of this reason, and this is why they're labeled that, because they believe in this certain amount of things. Yeah. If they believe in low tax, everybody should have an equal opportunity, they're on this side of the fence. If I want low taxes and I'm a gazillionaire, you're on this side of the fence. So they do educate me, and obviously I went to college, got my master's, things like that. So there's certain things I do understand, but I'm not really like... Right. I'm not really big into it, but that's not to say that I won't go do certain things, or I won't put my voice out there to say, hey, nah, wrong is wrong. I don't care who you are. I'm stepping up for you. Exactly. Get out of the way, ma'am. I got you, because that's not right. Exactly. So I will do that, but it's just like, I won't label it. I'm a Democrat. I'm a this, I'm a that. I really
That's why I said I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm an independent thinker. Yeah. Slinky, first of all, I mean, they say you know a person by his 5 friends. Yes. And I know three. I know 3 out of those 4 that you mentioned. Yeah. Don, and I know you. Gordon, yeah. So I can only imagine the 5th is amazing as well. Yes, for sure. And I'm proud of all you. Shout out to Officer Board, and if I can do that, I'm so proud of you. There's going to be organizers. There's people on the left that don't like police, and there's going to be people on the right that whatever. I'm proud of you, brother. Yes. Slinky, I'm proud of you, and he's going to be mayor one day. That man is tall enough to be president one day. I don't want to be president.
I lie to you not. We have conversations, and this is like in the group chat.
He'll be the mayor of Newburgh.
I'm like, bro, you should run.
He'll be the mayor of Newburgh. He could be the next mayor of Newburgh. We got to get him on the council when he's ready, when he wants it. Yes. He just knows too much, but he's of here.
Yes.
Let's agitate the spirit and the soul here so we can get more people from here.
I just feel like popularity alone, point blank period, he'll win off of that. And then secondly, is like people don't understand the power that individual has. Like his mind is so forward thinking. His mind is so out of this world. And he's an individual who I look up to, and we're the same age range. He's literally a couple months older than me, but he's an individual I look up to a lot.
Just like me and Eddie.
Exactly.
Now look at Donovan Fields and the work that he's been able
Another
to do.
individual who I look up to a lot.
Shout out to Donovan. Shout out to Elijah Hughes, my brothers.
Facts.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like, and seeing the way they operate and the way they move and interact.
Yes.
Right? And so now thinking about specifically this political power and capital, when Brother Slinky decides to make that next step,
Yeah.
he's going to have an officer, an entrepreneur, educated finance director.
There you go.
Someone who's playing overseas basketball, you know what I mean? Like, whose father instilled some of the greatest work ethic in the world.
Yes.
Who else am I missing? And then the brother Luke, who just got a cool name and that's biblical and everything.
Facts.
You know,
his Instagram is Gospel Luke at that.
I'm not surprised. Something told me that. You know what I'm saying? And so it matters. And I mean, again, even Borden's like the connections that are there, but you do need a team. And government's not going anywhere. Again,
it's really not.
Forget the politics. There's a government anywhere you go. You could take this skill set and what you know they can't take from you. You can go to Bermuda, you can go to Jamaica, you can go to Pakistan, you can go to Detroit, you can come back to Newburgh with everything you've learned. And there's still going to be a government here.
I tell people all the time, it's no mistake or it's not coincidence that they didn't want us to read. It's not by coincidence. Don't
put it in the book, right?
Yeah, put it in the book. Chop his hand off if he tries to touch that mother lover. It's not coincidence.
Disgusting, nasty work.
Yeah.
In my Black History class that I'm not teaching, I'm learning, and I almost didn't take it because I'm like, what is this white professor going to teach me?
Facts.
And so I'm able to give a lot, but also I'm learning a lot. And knowing that Thomas Jefferson had slaves, was raping women, and was being a disgusting human being. Understanding that he was one of the biggest proponents in removing slavery from the Constitution, but then other people pushed back against him.
Yeah.
And then years later, he went away from that. And so it just showed me, again, more of who the corrupt man that he could be, but he wasn't always that person specifically. But a few good men can always be outweighed by several or many wrong men, evil men.
Yes.
I believe in the ideals of this country, but I don't believe in what the men who have led this country have allowed us to do and become.
Exactly.
And yeah.
I always say that in regards to my brother, Borden, being a police officer. A lot of individuals I know don't like law enforcement, point blank, period. And once he crossed over to that threshold, I always told him frequently and warned him, hey, look, people are going to see you differently now. And one thing I always say is that the few bad apples can always ruin the rest, right? Yeah. And I feel that that's the thing in society right now. Derek Chauvin, this, that, and the third. You have all these police officers doing wrong. And yes, out of gazillion police officers in this lifetime, I'm sure there's a lot of bad apples. Yeah. But it's at the point sometimes where I feel personally throw away to hold the goddamn basket and burn it. And then outside of that, I'm like, professionally, it's like, just throw away the few bad apples.
Because there's still Black grandmothers and mothers that want safety for the community.
Exactly.
And they're against throwing it away. Mm-hmm. I have two uncles. Uncle Gary also passed around that time period. He was a police officer in Greenburgh and Westchester. Definitely a role model.
Yeah.
Uncle Sean wrote a book about being blue. He was also a police officer.
Okay.
And so, and I can understand. I didn't like defund the police because it was lazy sloganeering to me. We need to reallocate funds, right? There's so many, again, predatory things in their budgeting and needing to get the bulletproof vest that still works 20 years later. They had to re-up every year for governmental contracts and stuff like that. Like, get rid of that stuff. Yeah. Be more humane, but everything we said before, but is bullshit. The problem is inherently policing coming from overseers and things like that was only used to hurt us. You'll never see the KKK and the police in the same picture back in the day, right?
Yeah, that's the saying.
You know what I'm saying? And so it was used and wielded improperly. And I'd like to believe, and this might just be a belief, that more people of color involved will change that. Not saying people of color can't be bad or anything like that. Not all skin folk is kinfolk. I just think when there's more exposure to us, things change. I said to a Hispanic police officer yesterday, they had pulled over somebody. Thank you. And I'm glad to see you there. She said, why, sir? Cool. I love why. Right? And I said, because we need, and I gave her my answer. She said, okay, thank you. Kind of poo-pooed me. Maybe that's how I felt. Yeah. But maybe not. But the point is, it was good seeing that Hispanic woman on the, not forced, language matters, a part of the department. Yes. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Because it's breaking barriers. And hopefully that person holds that person accountable. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's doing it. Because the bad apple can ruin the bunch. Crabs in the barrel, we didn't create the barrel. Yeah. Crabs don't kill each other, they don't climb, they don't pull each other down in their natural environment. Yeah. And so yes, we create laws, legislative branch, we create laws for the folks that need to be more law-abiding. Yes. And we have to enforce those laws for a reason. So we're not going to get rid of them, but it could be more humane. The practices, the training, the understanding. There's poems that should be read. I can't remember her name, but she wrote, it's called Alternative Facts, and she wrote a poem for Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was killed within 7 seconds. And if you read the poem, look it up. Yeah. There's pauses in the poem. Reading the poem, it takes longer to read the poem than the young man was, or than it took for the officer to take away this young man's humanity. Yeah. We're dehumanized, and that's one of the greatest issues. And so for folk, I mean, pivot, Mike Tomlin said he doesn't see color, and maybe he's being political, but he got 2 black people in his quarterback room. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say? And so I don't know if it's political or not, but he sees something. I feel like deep down, every black person is always rooting for every black person. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to be perfect. We ain't going to take each other's lives. I just feel like deep down, the real thorough people, we always rooting for each other. Yes. And we do little things to be like, hey, look, they ain't supposed to know that. They not supposed to see that, my brother, but that's the answer to the test. And I'm going to get you in this door, and I'm going to need you to do what you got to do. And my whole thing is, I tell people, shout out to Dr. Umar Johnson, he always says that I'm not anti-anything, I'm just pro-black. And I loved when he said that because it articulated so much for me. Because I'm like, you know what? It's okay that I want my black brother to come do this, that, and the third, because it's nothing wrong because the other communities do that. And it's nothing wrong with that. At least in my belief, I would want somebody that's of me and of my thing and this, that, and the third to be a part of what I'm doing. So if I have the ability to put them in a situation, I think it's your obligation to. So if the whites have been doing it, I think it's okay that the blacks can do it. And if my pro-blackness... Let me paraphrase from Dion from Primetime. If my pro-blackness affects your insecurity, that's a you problem. Yeah, that's a you problem, right? He said confidence, but essentially, me being pro-black is the reason why I support Palestinian liberation. Me being pro-black as a Muslim is why I support the LGBTQ. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not going anywhere further with that. But I know that I remember knocking on doors and a black trans person said, well, what are you going to do about trans rights and protection? Because a black trans man is the most unprotected human being in America. Yeah. I actually just interviewed Friday. Remember I had told you I had an allotment of individuals. I actually just interviewed a trans woman. Yesterday down at Howard University. It was a great interview. Shout out to you, Jay, for allowing me to interview. But she spoke about a lot of things in that. And I'll be sure to send you that interview because it was a good one. Please do. 2 questions that I have before we end the podcast. One question I have is, what's next for you? Whether it's be personally or privately, what's next for Ali? Anything coming up? Anything new? You mentioned. So I mentioned I'm running for office, and this is something I'm gonna be sure to plug yourself. Always do. I'm gonna always do. I've been knocked off the ballot several times, and some of those losses, it has affected me. But you get knocked down, you get back up, right? Exactly. And so I'm running for New York State Assembly when this comes out. Hopefully, I'll be on the ballot. I would have received my 500 signatures, and there won't be no political stuff involved. God willing, I'll get in a good, healthy relationship, and I'll be able to start a family because that is something that I'm really longing for. Okay. And while my parents are getting older, I want to be able to provide them a grandchildren. Definitely. I'm working with the organization through my nonprofit, Melanin Unchained, and in my other works, where God willing, we'll be able to have this festival that I've been trying to bring on, the humanities in place with the Mellon Foundation. I'm in the final stages, and so I don't want to, it's the first time I'm actually saying it publicly, but it's a nice planning grant to get these things done, so that way, unfortunately, money talks, right? Yes. Accreditation speaks louder than anything else, and so all these ideas that we could have, teaching kids how to shoot cameras, not guns, and paying artists to do more, and voter education drives, it takes resources. And so I've been connected to some folks. Shout out to Jalissa Pena, Dominicana, spiritual advisor, and someone who works for this organization. I don't know if I was supposed to do that or not, but the point is, she's helping folks get it. She's not a gatekeeper. We got some black folks that are gatekeepers, and so she's trying to open that up, and that's what I'm trying to do too. I want to be able to help artists in this community, help folks that are spiritually connected, so that way we could build and show the greater community of Newburgh and the Hudson Valley. Definitely. That's my goal. All right.
I know we got to get out of here soon. I know you're on a time crunch with it being 10:44. Oh, wow. The last question we always end the podcast with, and I'll actually have you answer both.
Okay.
But we always typically ask the individual is, if you know how to play chess, what is your favorite chess piece and why? And if you don't know how to play chess, we always ask the individual to look into the camera and say, if the entire world was watching, we got China, we got Israel, we have this, we have that, we have everybody in the world watching, what would be some advice to save them some heartache and pain? Just any advice in at all. So I want you to answer both of those.
Do you mind if I answer the second one first?
Yes, it doesn't matter the order, but just make sure what's your favorite piece, and any advice for the world to save them some heartache and pain, what would your advice be? And you just look into the camera.
So as I write poetry, ironically, my pieces, P-I-E, I call pieces, P-E-A, pieces. Peace. Positive energy activates constant elevation. And that's my message to the world. Peace. Positive energy activates constant elevation. I love the night.
Why?
A Knight's Tale, when I was younger, he uplifted his status. He wanted to change his station in life, and I've always wanted to change my station in life.
Okay.
We didn't have a lot of wealth. I had a wealth of knowledge, and I wanted to be able to achieve more. I wanted the generational wealth for my family and the next several generations of Muhammad's. I like the way he could move on the board, and I'm a protector. Okay. I'm a king, but I don't need to be the king.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's a spoken word piece years ago from HBO, and the brother spoke about being the queen. He was a man talking about the queen, because the queen is the most dominant piece.
Facts.
And sometimes people think I need to be in charge, and I don't. Yeah. I'm a knight. I'm a knight.
I appreciate you, sir. This is enjoyable, man. I really enjoyed this episode. I really did, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for stopping by Conversations Over Chess. See you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Follow. Peace.
Bro. Nothing ever comes to a sleeper but a dream. So I'm woke, try and get that money any means. Used to watch mom sweat them clothes to get them clean. Grew up in the slums, ain't shit that I ain't seen. And it's still free, all the guys till they free. Couple niggas crippin' and the others throwing bees. One thing for sure, they gon' all ride for me. Cause we ain't never phased no gang family.
8 states out of 50. He's doing this thing, and he interviewed me earlier today. Conversations Over Chess. Conversations Over Chess. Okay. And so he has his thing that he's building up, and I'm glad that he had me a part of it. So he wanted to come out here and get some B-roll of what we're doing.
Love, light, and sharp machetes.
That's
all
it.
day.
All
It's
day.
Lifestyle.
Liberation is a lifestyle.
You can't take off this costume.
Let's go.
It's for life.
For life.
Took a couple L's, but we like to call those lessons. Coming from the burg, I was taught to pay attention. Cause them snakes out hissing and they'll sneak you in a second. For that I keep a circle that be tighter than a virgin. Couple niggas screaming, fuck the law, ready for purging. Tell them let the 40 touch a nigga like it's flirting. A lot of hidden hate, y'all thought y'all was lurking. But ain't no time to lack, nah, I'm always observant. Grew up in the field, but I never played the corner. Still could jam a nigga if I don't like the rowdy running. I've been underground, running around like head tummy. came from the bottom, I swear I started with nothing. So how can niggas hate? I swear to love, it all be fake. Smiling in my face, but wanna do me like I'm ace. That's why I say my grace before I put them on a plate. Cause I know I'm too important, like a fucking uppercase. And life is like a race, it's just all about the pace. For a little money, dudes become a big disgrace. The fake come and go, but the real can't be replaced. They say the sky's the limit, only limit I embrace. And I'm about $1, no surprise I get the cake. Cause I was taught to hustle in any weather, cannot wait. I done had to starve just to make sure others ate. My pain versus your hurt is something that cannot relate. They try to lock the door, I kick that bitch like Kevin Gates. Couple roadblocks I ran through like I was freight. Heart of a lion, I was molded by the apes. That's why I stand talking, never fall, ain't no debate. I'm on a mission, I gotta get it. For all them long nights, the oven had to heat the kitchen. For all them starving nights, I went to sleep just to forget it. No food, but the sink was always full of dishes. Check the refrigerator, knowing nothing even in it. Nights like that can turn a young boy into a menace. Same reason I don't give a fuck about no feelings. Cause I'ma be starving till I count 100 million. Part of my back, nigga.